Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Paige Baldwin. I am co-founder and executive director for Altogether Beautiful Ministries. In case you don't know much about us, we founded this year in 2022. Altogether Beautiful Ministries is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing Christ-centered education, encouragement, and empowerment to women of our churches and community. We do seek to improve access to and promote healing around topics of sexuality, mental health, and fear, all through the lens of Scripture. We seek to provide affordable and interactive experiences. We want to equip women with the tools and community that they need to overcome some of life's toughest challenges. If you want to know more about us, you can go to our website, www.altogetherbeautifulministries.org, and find out a little bit more about us. Tonight is our very first class. We hope to be doing many of these in the future. We're starting with this one tonight, Female Body, Reproductive Biology from Menses to Conception. Some of our future classes will go a little bit more into depth, but tonight we're just going to cover the basics of anatomy, external and internal reproductive organs, and then we're going to cover the basics of a menstrual cycle and conception. If you have any questions, please either put them in the chat, email us at info@altogetherbeautifulministries.org, comment on this class page, and we will try to get those answered to the best of our ability. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and we're going to start with the female body. Bear with me here. All right. There we go. Okay, reproductive biology, menses to conception. Our topic outline, we're going to talk about the internal anatomy, the external anatomy, menstrual cycle and the phases, and then just the briefest basics on conception. We're going to start with Psalm 139, 13 and 14. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. I love this verse. We at Altogether Beautiful Ministries do firmly believe that we were designed by the divine creator, our God, and that he did create us fearfully and wonderfully, and that every part of us was created for a reason. That is why we find it so important to learn about our bodies. There are so many women who don't know their anatomy, what their anatomy is for, or they think that some of these words that we're going to talk about today are dirty words, and they're not. We're going to talk about our bodies and how they are not dirty or disgusting, but instead they are wonderfully and beautifully designed by our Creator. We're going to start with the internal female reproductive anatomy. There are 4 major reproductive organs of the female body. They are called the vagina, the ovaries, the uterus, and the fallopian tubes. The vagina is a muscular tube that receives the penis during intercourse, and through it is the baby leaves during childbirth. Vagina is not a dirty word. It is a wonderful word. Ovaries, the female gonads. When the ovaries produce ova, we know them as the eggs. When one matures, it is released down into the fallopian tube. The fallopian tubes are small tubes that transport ova from the ovaries to the uterus. This is where the egg waits to be fertilized. And then lastly, the uterus. This organ holds and nourishes a developing fetus, baby, if an egg is properly fertilized. You can see here a picture of the vaginal opening, the cervix that closes and opens to either allow sperm in or to protect the baby if there is one growing in our uterus. It opens up into the uterus that connects to the fallopian tubes that connect to the ovaries. External female reproductive anatomy. There are 8 main structures in the female external sex organs. Sorry, went too fast. All right, these structures are the mons pubis, the labia majora, the labia minora, the clitoris, the vestibule, the hymen, the vestibular bulb, and the vestibular glands. The mons pubis is what we'll start with. It is the fatty pad that acts as a cushion during sexual intercourse. It also acts as a cushion just to protect those organs in our everyday activities. It is what is usually covered with hair after puberty, and it is there for a very important function. It's there to protect and to cushion the insides. The labia majora translates into big lips. That is the fatty folds that enclose around the other external genitalia. The labia majora also contains sweat and sebaceous glands, which produce a lubricating secretion. A lot of women are concerned when they sweat. They don't think they're supposed to sweat in their vulvar area. It is completely normal. The labia majora contains sweat glands, and it is completely normal to sweat. We're supposed to sweat there. The labia minora is the inner lips. These are thin, wispy. They can be different sizes for everyone. Some can be long, some can be short. They're devoid of fat, so it's just skin. And they are there to protect the opening of the urethra and the vagina. The next is the clitoris. That is the female pleasure organ. We'll talk more about that in a few slides. The vestibule is just the area that the labia majora and minora protect. It's just basically the hall where our openings are. The hymen. The hymen is a thin piece of tissue located at the opening of the vagina. The hymen may partially cover the opening, or it may completely cover the opening. In those very rare cases, surgical intervention is normally required, just because the opening, it does need to be accessible for us to be able to menstruate when we do start puberty. Although the hymen has no biological purpose that we know of, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions surrounding the hymen. The most popular one, and especially a lot of church cultures and conservative cultures, is that the hymen, if it is intact, is a sign of virginity. That is not true. Some women are born with no hymen at all. Other women, their hymen tears at a very young age just from doing normal, everyday, vigorous activities, riding a bike, jumping on a trampoline, riding a horse. As we age a little bit, using a tampon. These are all things that can tear the hymen, and an intact hymen is definitely not a sign of virginity. The vestibular bulb is the organ that causes a vaginal orgasmic contraction, and it causes these rhythmic contractions of the muscles in our vagina if we are lucky enough to have a vaginal orgasm. That is not normal for everyone. If you've never had a vaginal orgasm, that is okay. Some people will go their entire lives never having one. The vestibular glands are what is responsible for producing the secretions and lubrication for us. So during sexual arousal, you notice that you get a little bit wet feeling in your underwear. That is a normal body process. That is the vestibular glands producing lubrication and getting your body ready. Here is a better picture. Another thing a lot of women don't know is that we do have 3 openings. We have the anus, where we have our bowel movements, then we have the vagina, and then we have the urethra. The urethra is where we urinate from. The clitoris. The clitoris is, again, not a dirty word, not a dirty part of your body. It is the female sex organ. It has one function, that is female pleasure. There are over 8,000 nerve endings, and they work together to give us orgasms. The clitoris is an erectile structure. When you are sexually aroused, the bulbs will grow and engorge with blood, and that's what makes everything look a little bit different when we are sexually aroused. Here's a better picture. A lot of people also don't realize how big the clitoris is. The part that we see and feel on a regular basis is the glands. It's just the tip. The rest of it is internal. It is up and surrounds, it comes down and surrounds the vagina and urethra opening. So if you didn't know what your clitoris looked like or how big it really was, now you do. All right. Let's see if there are any questions so far. Don't see any. Okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to go through the menstrual cycle. I like to refer to them as seasons, and I do divide them into 4. Most textbooks or teachers are going to stop at 3. They combine the first 2. However, I do separate them out into 4 complete cycle seasons. And I just find that easier, a little bit easier to compartmentalize and explain. We're just going over the basics today. I do plan on giving a menstrual care class in the future. I'm developing that right now, and it'll go a little bit more into depth about how we can care for our bodies during this time and in each season. So our menstrual phase is phase 1. The days on here, again, are just like textbook average. Not every woman is going to fit into this category. So if your menstrual actual bleeding cycle doesn't last 7 days, that's okay. Some women last 3 days before they move to the next phase. Some women last 14 days. If you're having a 14-day period, I would go see a gynecologist. But that's just to say that these days, the length varies for every woman. So the days that you hear me say today are purely for illustration purposes. Menstrual phase, days 1 through 7, estrogen and progesterone are hormones. Those levels drop. What we menstruate, what we lose blood, cervical fluid, and our uterine lining. It concerns a lot of women how much blood they lose during a normal, just regular period. And I will tell you that it's not all blood. It mixes with uterine lining and cervical fluid to make it look like a lot more than there really is. Our follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, levels start to increase, and that signals our body that we are starting another cycle. That moves us into our second phase, our follicular phase, days 8 through 13. Our estrogen and follicle stimulating hormone levels begin to rise. Our follicles in our ovaries begin to mature, and one of them will develop into a mature egg. Our cervix at this point will close, and we will move into an ovulation phase, days 14 through 21. Our estrogen peaks, our cervical fluid will increase, our cervix opens back up, the follicles mature, and our LH hormone, luteinizing hormone, triggers the release of a mature egg. That egg will then travel through the fallopian tube. If sperm is present in the fallopian tube, that egg will be fertilized and life will begin. If there is no sperm present, then the egg will dissolve within about 24 hours. Moves us to our luteal phase, days 21 through 28. Our uterine lining begins to thicken to support a possible pregnancy. Ovarian follicles develop into the corpus luteum. So when the egg matures and is released, what is left behind develops into this corpus luteum, and it starts to produce progesterone. If there is no pregnancy, the corpus luteum will disintegrate and the cervix will open to prepare for menstruation shedding. If there is a pregnancy, then the corpus luteum will continue to function and produce progesterone to sustain that early pregnancy. Conception. Psalm 139:16 says, "Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Pregnancy happens in 3 basic stages. Ovulation is when an egg is released to travel through the fallopian tube. Fertilization is when a sperm meets and penetrates the egg. They become a zygote. At that time, life begins. Implantation is when the zygote, or a baby, attaches to the uterine wall, implants, and starts to grow. Here's another view of that picture of the internal organs. You can see the ovaries, where the eggs mature. The fallopian tube is where the egg travels to. The vagina is where the penis enters during sexual intercourse. When the man ejaculates, he shoots out fluid. In that fluid are millions of sperm. And to illustrate, they look like tadpoles. And so the sperm will travel up through the vagina through the uterus and into the fallopian tube, where one of them, if it's the right circumstances, will penetrate the egg. Once they penetrate, that is when life begins, and they happily travel together now as one back into the uterus. If the conditions are perfect, then it will implant and begin to grow. And we will get a little bit more into pregnancy in a further course. We are planning courses on fertility, conception, and pregnancy health and wellness. But are there any questions at this point? Any questions at all? Okay. Well, thank you again for being here. I really enjoyed going over the basics of the female body, and I'm looking forward to getting a little bit more into depth in future classes. Again, check out our website, www.altogetherbeautifulministries.org, for information about who we are or what we're doing next. Send us a message, email us at info@altogetherbeautifulministries.org if you have any questions, or if there is a particular topic that you would like to delve into in the future. I'm going to go ahead and stop for this recording, and we'll say goodnight.